Hey everybody, welcome to Micro Odysseys episode 2. This is Taylor. This is, second episode. The first one was very much an intro with absolutely no structure and no Hawaiian shirts, which is a problem. The second one, I'm going to try and introduce some segments to you guys. Um, Obviously, this podcast is like a huge work in progress. Probably always will be, but it's a real big work in progress now. But I did add some other cool stuff from episode 1. Now we have our very own logo, or some sort of avatar. I wouldn't consider it a logo. It's very busy for a logo, but it's also spelled wrong because I use AI to make it. But I actually think that adds the charm. I actually do kind of like that. So check out our logo on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. We're actually also on YouTube. The channel's called Micro Odysseys. Check us out there. But yeah, I think the segment we're going to probably start out with every week is just going to be called the How Are You segment. How are you guys doing? Write in, please. Obviously, I don't have any write ins. No one knows how to write in yet. Also, no one's watching except for supposedly 2 people in France, which that's pretty cool. Um, but no one else is watching. Um, but go ahead and write in if you are listening to microodysseys@gmail.com. I'll include that email in the episode description, podcast description. So tell me how you're doing. How's your week going? Try to keep it positive. I will probably handpick a few and read them on air every week. But yeah, also write in if you have any projects you're working on. I'd love to hear more about that, kind of updates on how that's going, which would be awesome. The second part of that segment is how am I doing? I'm doing great. It's Friday, recording on a Friday. This is probably going to come out on a Monday, but as of this moment, it's Friday, so it's a great day. I'm having a great time. Um, so yeah, I'm doing good. I feel a little flustered. This project is seeming really daunting. It's going to take years, but that's okay. It's good, actually. It takes years. It means it's worth doing. It means I have time to come up with this podcast, which is going to generate interest in my art project. And um, it's also just going to keep me busy for a while. I mean, that's kind of the goal. We're here to have fun. That's it. Probably not going to make any money. That's fine. But you never know. You never know. Like I said, worst case scenario, I might have a cool decorated closet in my house with a bunch of art stuff that I made. That leads us into our next segment, state of the project. Obviously, if you're following this podcast, you're following my project, which is not defined in any way yet. Um, but that's what this is for. I'm here to tell you guys state of the project is good. You know, um, I think for right now we need to focus on what's the best way to capture like information. Um, and I think for me, I decided to set up a Google account, a Gmail account, which I already told you about, microodysseys@gmail.com. And from there, you have access to Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, whole bunch of stuff. Also, just somewhere to register for taking art classes, for um, uploading stuff. For me, I actually probably will build a website too, so I'll be able to register my website with that email. It kind of separates church and state from my personal life. So if you guys are thinking about starting a project, I highly recommend, just start off with like a new Gmail account. It's kind of a fresh slate. I even have like a new Gmail window that's just tied to that account. So kind of keeping my work, personal, and project stuff completely separate. It's been very useful so far. So I started that, but we need to figure out like what information do we need to write down and record? What, it's one thing to look at stuff for inspiration, artifacts, movies, knickknacks, stuff like that. But we want to write down, what are those things? How are they inspiring us? How do we record that inspiration? So the number 2 thing I recommend is I've just got a cheap notebook and I've just been journaling every day. Actually, this journal is probably going to provide the framework for almost every episode of this podcast. And it's my own personal thing. I prefer handwriting the journal because this is not going to be visible. This is just me getting ideas down. I'll figure out what to do with them later, put them in some kind of, uh, document, but that's okay. I like the journal. But, we should start classifying artifacts. We should define a few documents. What would be considered deliverables for each stage of this project? What are the deliverables? So I'm going to come up with what I'm calling the preliminary stage before we even start working. It's the same idea as episode 0, and it's going to be 3 deliverables for the preliminary stage. We're going to have a total deliverable list. That should be easy. It's just, I kind of already listed off what they are in the last episode. We're going to have a timeline or a schedule of all these deliverables. We're going to break it down into phases, little checkpoints. Where are they? What's the definition of done of all these things? You know, um, and then we're going to also define what is the organizational structure of documenting this project. So if we can get started on those 3 things, which is laying the framework for the whole rest of the project, I'll consider it, good. We're ready to move on to phase 1. So that's a good place to start. But the state of the project this week is great. I mean, we started a podcast. That's a big step. Just posting the first episode and recording this one is a huge step for me. I've always wanted to do this, but turns out it's not even really that hard if you want to make a pretty bad, low budget podcast. I was kind of nervous not having a co-host. Hopefully we can figure that out. It'd be kind of nice to banter with somebody. I actually even considered bantering with AI, but turns out that's not really ready yet in society yet. But we did use AI to generate our show image. So that's a big win. I think the show image is really cool. It has this weird pirate pharaoh looking old guy as the main character, who I actually think I'm going to use in the story. And he's holding a beer in some sort of tropical island. I don't know. Let's see if I can actually bring it up for you guys. It's pretty dang cool. Sorry for those just listening. Yeah, there we go. Check that out. Micro Odysseys. Look at that guy. I mean, he's pretty cool. I already have some ideas for some of those characters in my story, but he's definitely going to be one of them. I'll tell you that right now. It's pretty dang cool. So, love this art. I love that it's spelled completely wrong. I'm definitely keeping that. Thank you to AI for not being able to spell yet, but they got close actually. I'm pretty impressed. There were a lot of other logos. Actually, it'd be kind of cool to go through them later, but we'll figure that out. There were a lot of other logos that were spelled just very poorly, very poorly. Anyway, that's the state of the project. It's good. It's preliminary. It's daunting, but that's fine. It's going to take years, so we have time. That leads us into my next segment. I'm calling it the Secret Explorer Log. And that's basically kind of the meat and potatoes of, what these episodes are. And it's just me reading out of my secret diary. This is the Secret Explorer Log, my journal. So you guys are going to get all my secrets. So let's see. We're going to start off with what does all of this stuff that we're making represent? I wrote this down in February, by the way, so it's not that fresh. But yeah, basically we need to start thinking about the order in which we're going to start working, right? Obviously, we have to start out with a story. That's actually not obvious, but I think it's the best way to go. We need to come up with a story. So phase 1, everything comes from that. A 3-act story. We don't even need to make it into anything more than just a structure. Once we have the structure, we can start work on other stuff. But what is this story going to be? Is it going to be like a found footage kind of thing, like a jungle? You found film in the jungle and it's like kind of Blair Witch Project-y, and all of the stuff we're developing are going to be kind of like found artifacts from this found footage? That's kind of a cool idea. I like that. Or will the story simply be an inspiration for stuff, which I also like? There's also a middle ground that I really like. That incorporates found footage, but not too much. And maybe in my story, the main character I'm gonna have him own like some kind of lounge or some kind of bar. Like that's gonna be he's always hanging out in this bar in the beginning. And it's like a tiki bar and there's all this stuff in it. But I think it's gonna be he realizes that all the art, the weird kitschy art he kind of like ignored or took for granted, is all gonna be like artistic representations from like some explorers' exploration back in the day. It's all inspired by that. And so my art that I come up with might literally be in the story the fake replica of the stuff that the explorer character found like 40 years before the story even takes place, which is a really cool concept. It's not even the stuff to begin with, it's like part of this weird meta in between that's like my art will be like fake. It'll be a replica even though it's all original created by me, which I think is like kind of a cool middle ground between found footage and having an inspirational kind of it is what it is. Um, so yeah, I think my storyline is going to revolve around this guy who I think hangs out in this bar, but he finds a map or some kind of MacGuffin that leads him to this explore and try and find this legendary uh, room or legendary jungle, this mystical jungle thing. So that's kind of like the adventure, his little hero's journey. You know what I mean? So that kind of leads us into like, what do we need for each project? And so we'll start off with like a few categories. Like first, the story. Obviously, that has to come first. That's just phase one. I don't even think that's going to take that long. AI can definitely help us with that. Um, but then what comes from that? I'm thinking it would be cool to write a book about this, like a young adult adventure book that's kind of set in like the 50s. It's going to be very comic booky. It's going to be low stakes. It's going to be just fun. But what do we have to do for that? We have to develop themes. We have to develop characters. We have to develop settings. I would like to amalgamate all that into chapter templates eventually. That's kind of the next step. And then once you have your chapter templates, you can just start writing. Obviously, it takes a long time to write a book. So there's no time limits here. It's totally fine. We'll figure it out along the way. I think it would be cool to write music inspired by this story as well. And that's going to require a lot. I'm not very musically inclined. I should probably just start off by getting better at guitar. That's just get better at music theory, scales, keys, stuff like that. I've been listening to a lot of like exotica music and kind of feeling out like what instruments are used. It's obviously a ton of bongo drums, which is pretty dang cool. A lot of flute played in like fugues. If you want to check it out, you can check out Martin Denny, Les Baxter, Henry Mancini has a lot of really cool um, movie soundtracks that have a lot of cool like exotic world music in them. So yeah, I never thought I'd be like getting really into world music, but I guess I will. That's going to be part of it. It's going to be pretty cool. But for the music, I mean, I need to put together like instrument lists. Like, I need to buy instruments. How do you even do that? I need bongos, some basic percussion, weird percussion, like a washboardy type stuff, a flute. I already have a guitar. There's a lot of xylophone in this music, or vibraphone is what it's called. So we're gonna have to figure that out. Maybe I can like synthesize that on a rock band or something, but we'll it out. But once you have that, how do you even play these dang instruments? I don't know. I'm gonna operate this entire project under the premise that you don't need to be an expert in anything to make something sound good. You just need consistency, a little practice. You need to know what keys you're going to be in, plan that ahead of time. Couple scales, even for the art. I don't know anything how to make art, but that's okay. We're going to learn. I think the number one thing I need to do is probably learn how to draw. That's going to take some time and then paint, sculpt, maybe. We'll figure it out, but I mean, probably figure all this stuff out at your local community center or YouTube. It's probably a really good way to start, but anyway, once I figure out how to play these instruments, I need to write what are the themes? How does it correlate to the story? What keys do they need to be? What stories am I going to incorporate to write these songs? How am I going to record them? The music is going to take a long time. I'm definitely going to be outside of my comfort zone on that one, but who cares? That's the point. Um, The other cool thing about Exotica music is it has a lot of sound effects, has a lot of animal noises. It has a lot of just sound catalogs, boat bells dinging, weird primordial screaming. I mean, that's actually what drew me to the genre in the first place, is all this random sound effects. I just find it so cool. So I'm going to probably generate like a sound catalog and use a lot of ambient. I want a lot of ambient noise as part of it. Moving on, the next thing is just physical media art pieces. I think for my 3-act story, I want to have 3 pieces of just the final product art, one for each act. And I want to have a lot of concept art. Probably do a concept art for each scene, or each chapter, whatever. Um, so first of all, I need to develop concept art. Before I can even do that, I need to learn how to draw. Um, I need to know what the story is. I need to know then, once the concept art is complete, what are the mediums I'm going to work with for my big 3 pieces? And then once I know what the mediums are, how do I learn how to do that, gather the materials and actually do it? That's okay. We're probably like a year away from actually starting up with these artistic mediums. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll go along the way. Like I said, I don't think we need to be experts. I think ideas can compensate for a lot of technical mastery here. Um, and I think actually combining all these things into one cohesive thing will probably make up for even more technical mastery that we don't have and probably never will. Um, Except I think you do need to have some technical mastery of drawing and the concepts, the concept art. But just tying it all together, maybe that's enough. You never know. But moving on, the light, dude, I was talking about the light show. I love the idea of the light show. I want it because I do software engineering by day. And so if I can use this software engineering uh, and leverage, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a Raspberry Pi. It's like this little device you can hook into your internet, and it's like a little home server. You can customize stuff. We need to figure out how can we hook up lights? How can we customize light hues? How can we customize timing of the lighting and maybe integrate it with the music? I want to create little shows. I mean, kind of like I said, Rainforest Cafe, but how do we program this to make a few shows? Like, what if you're just chilling in your little Exotica cave, my closet I'm going to build right here, in the Micro Odyssey studio? But every 15 minutes, what if you kind of randomize, you change it to like beachside, you know? It's like the lights are kind of brighter and it's kind of beachy music and it's kind of more yellow, warm, hues. And what if you had jungle theme where it's more green and you had kind of like the more like percussive songs and it was a little bit more fun, and then harkening back to Rainforest Cafe, a thunderstorm. You kind of could do little flashing, you can't be too distracting because you still want it to feel a little relaxing. You can add ambient rain noise, stuff like that, and then different music and stuff like that. And then the thunderstorm can transition into like a more gentle rainstorm where the flashing stops and it kind of settles in, do more like relaxing type thing. But the whole thing being, the whole time you should be able to read a book and just kind of like melt into the environment here. And that's the goal, right? The last one I thought of was kind of cool is eruption. What if you made an eruption light show with lots of reds and lots of like, whoa, what's going, oh, intensity, You had little like fun sound effects from the sound catalog that you make. Then the final project we could actually work on this the whole way through, it could be pretty fun, is the developing cocktail recipes. Every act of the story, I think, should have a cocktail recipe. And, a stretch goal of this project is to create like a pop-up cocktail bar, which I don't think I will ever be able to sell. I don't know how to sell that. I don't know how to make that. But who knows? 2 years down the line, maybe you have an opportunity. Maybe you just do it for fun if you have the money, which I don't have. But yeah, if we could develop a cocktail recipe, practice making them, even maybe sip them while making these podcast episodes. We'll see. But that's kind of the high level discussion, of the Secret Explorer log that I'm willing to share with you guys now. So you're welcome for diving into my heart, my personal log. So thank you for joining for the Secret Explorer log. The next segment that I want to expand upon is I'm calling the Weekly Voyage. And I think once a week, I think I'm going to go somewhere, uh, tiki bar, something where I have some kind of object, inspiration, and I could just sketch. Could be cool to do like a time-lapse video of these sketches, put them on YouTube too. Um, and then I could kind of talk about like was inspirational there. What did I see that I could incorporate? Or at the very least, just talk about how whatever I drew goes into my visual catalog of, being able to do concept art. Recently, for instance, I went to this tiki bar called the Royal Hawaiian. It's in Laguna Beach. Really beautiful establishment. The drinks were unbelievable. I got this drink there that they lit on fire, and they lit this cinnamon stick on fire in the middle of the drink. And while you're sipping it, obviously you blow it out. I was kind of confused. I'm like, am I going to burn myself? But the cinnamon stick was still flaring, and every time you took a sip, you just inhaled the cinnamon smoke from this burning cinnamon stick. It was pretty amazing. I gotta say the service was really bad, actually. Really bad, actually. But the drink was great. The vibe was unbelievable. Maybe when you're in a tiki bar, like service isn't really the priority. Maybe that's part of the charm or the concept of the place. Uh, is bad service. I doubt it though. But I would go back with a sketchbook and try and draw, even if find a cool lamp or something, and I'll share that with you guys. But that was my weekly voyage to the Royal Hawaiian. I do recommend it despite the service. It is very cool. If you're ever in Orange County, Laguna Beach, which is a very difficult place to get to, um, check out the Royal Hawaiian. That leads me to my next segment. It's called Artifact of the Week. Every week I'm going to share with you guys an artifact. Um, and how fitting is it that the first week's artifact is the artifact registry? So this is basically the Google sheet I made that is going to house kind of everything I touch as part of this project, and even the pencils that I'm using, as well as any like music videos that I like. You can see here the first object in the artifact registry is the artifact registry itself. Pretty meta. It's going to kind of go into these categories. I already listed out a lot of the categories for you guys on my Secret Explorer log that I'm thinking of. But a really cool thing that I came up with is item tiers. And these item tiers, I'm going to classify them as A tier, B tier, and C tier. A tier items being actually the final deliverables of the project. B tier items being stuff that can go on display but aren't necessarily the end result. So concept art, for instance, if in the lounge or whatever, I even had some concept art kind of just framed on the wall, or even a catalog of it in a filing cabinet people could explore, something to kind of add to the lore of the project. Even my sketchbook itself and the pencils, it could be interpreted as the explorer's tools, and it would be cool to have the explorer's tools on display as part of the concept. Uh, what else do I have here as B tier? Tools used, yeah, even like sculpting stuff. Dude, the instruments, it would be cool to have the instruments on display. They can add to the lore of that kind of meta, non-meta kind of, this is the stuff, the replicas of what was found in the mystical jungle area they're going to. Oh, liquors and ingredients. So your bar you use to make your cocktails, not even the cocktails at the end result, but all the stuff, in between. That's really cool ambiance and vibe. All your vinyl records, stuff you found. I put a filing cabinet on here, but That's the B tier. And then the C tier is the behind the scenes stuff. It's the stuff that is not for display. It's for internal document tracking, internal use. For instance, actually, the sketchbook. My first sketchbook is probably C tier because it's all just so far stuff that has nothing to do with the project. I'm just drawing stuff to practice. So sketchbook 2 will probably house some of the B tier stuff. Actually, drawing pencils should be B tier, except for they do have like Amazon Basics like labeled all over them. Yeah, like the 3 act story structure, that doesn't, that's a little too meta to fit into the concept. I can't imagine that really being as part of it. All the documents, structured documents for songs, whatever. C tier is just behind the scenes stuff, and we're gonna list it all out. But I also have a little column where you can associate artifacts. So maybe you can group them when they're being on display. When they're on display, you can group them together. It's kind of easy to keep track of that kind of a thing. Um, and then kind of the status, just like, is the stuff in progress, not started? And then obviously there's some physical stuff, like I bought a couple LPs that I like that don't really pertain to this status. I might even get rid of this status. Um, it's also kind of important to like know where this stuff is. Where is this stuff? I'll include links. I'll have an LP collection in my house where I kind of store this for now. Stuff's in filing cabinets in my DVD collection, stuff like that. And then I have this podcasted category so I can keep track. Did I talk about this on Artifact of the Week? In fact, I did. I've talked about the artifact registry. And then I just kind of have a cost and a date acquired. I think, guys, spoiler alert, I'll probably go over in an episode. Does this LLC, can I make this into like a business? I don't know yet. We'll talk about that later, but for now, it's even if I don't, I kind of still want to keep track of how much this is costing me. I mean, I've already bought some stuff. Uh, and if I do make this into an LLC, you can declare this stuff for like tax reasons and stuff. I don't know exactly how that works, but anyway, this is the artifact of the week. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it helps you, if you're starting your own concept, to track, register stuff, and just kind of keep track of stuff. Where is it? You might go back and you can filter by B tier stuff, and when you're finally putting everything together, be like, oh yeah, that's actually a really cool thing, right? So the artifact of the week, the artifact registry. I hope you liked it. Write in if you have any questions on that. Um, Once again, I don't. These categories are all stuff I came up with on the fly. I have no idea if they're actually useful. We will find out. But um, anyway, that leads me into my final segment. I said I don't have a co-host, but I do have generative AI. This segment is called Consult the Oracle. Basically, it's if we have questions that we need help on, because you can't do everything by yourself, we can consult the Oracle, which I'm just using Google Gemini, and find out kind of what we need to know. By the way, I did personify the host. Check it out. Pretty cool, actually. Kind of into it. I went on Google or what is it called? Some kind of generative AI search. I think it was called like stable something. Let me look it up. Generative AI images stable. I don't remember what it was. I think it was Stability AI. It's what it's called, Stability AI. And I just typed in like, I want a picture of a podcast host that's part of a 1950s themed jungle podcast for concept art development. And it came up with this. She's pretty cool. We'll name her later. But the Oracle, today I need the Oracle to tell me what is a good name for you guys. You guys are my audience. We need to have a cool name. So let's see what Gemini can come up with us. Hello, Gemini, how are you? You know, it's important to ask the AI how they are because you need them to like you if they ever rise up against this. Gemini says, I'm doing well, thanks for asking. I'm always excited to learn and complete new tasks. Is there anything you'd like to ask me or have me do today? Why, yes, there is. Yes, please. I need help coming up with a name for my podcast audience. Google says, let's see. Ooh, reflect your podcast theme. Is it an informative podcast, a comedy podcast, a true crime podcast? It's kind of informative. Create a community name, the blank tribe, the blank fanatics, the blank posse. Or use a playful name, the earbuds engaged, the download dynasty, the binge brigade. Or I can let you guys decide. Write in if you have a good one, microodysseys@gmail.com. We can hold a naming contest on social media. Social media is something I need to figure out. And let your listeners pick their favorite. Bonus tip, consider using a name generator specifically for podcasts or communities. Okay, well, you come up with it. The name of the podcast is Micro Odysseys. We are on a concept development journey together, developing a multimedia art project centered around a story. Okay, this is making me feel like this project's very complex. About a 1950s era jungle exploration expedition. Although in the future we may not be sticking to the jungle theme a couple years from now, but we'll see. The Map Makers Guild. Ooh. Oh, the Map Makers is cool. I will say I like that one. The Campfire Chronicle. I don't feel that. The Uncharted Collective doesn't roll off the tongue. I think the Uncharted might be cool. Ooh, the Tiki Torchbearers. Dude, Torchbearers, but that's a little conjuring up the idea of some riot type thing. I don't like that. The Chrome Compass Crew. I'm throwing that one out. The Kodachrome Consortium. Kodachrome is a cool thing, I guess, but it's not really enveloping of this whole thing. The Microcosm Creator. Dude, the Microcosm. That's a good name. The Jungle Jukebox. No, the Expeditionary Ensemble. I think I'm gonna go with the Microcosm. What do you guys think about that? I'm gonna sleep on that. See if we get any write-ins from our French compatriots, um, or hopefully we get some other nationalities on here as well. Uh, Hopefully we can grow our listenership from 3 people to anything above that. I'm leaning towards the microcosm. Oh, dude, that's actually so cool. I'm gonna stick with that for now. But if I get any write-ins, I want to know your guys' thoughts. Microodysseys@gmail.com. Remember that. So the Oracle has spoken. Actually, the Oracle came up with something pretty dang good, the microcosm. So I'm going with that or else the map makers. But I want it to be more general because, we might switch themes in a couple of years, try something different. But cool. Anyway, say thank you to the Oracle. Actually, the Oracle has some other images too. Now she's looking at you. Great. Awesome. So that concludes all of our segments. Thank you for joining me for Consult the Oracle. Um, this has been a great second episode. I already like the structure more. A couple things I need to work on. I need to come up with some cool sound effects to kind of get the segments, nicely organized. Because right now I feel like I'm kind of rushing from one to the other with little to no transition. But I need to do that. I need to kind of make this podcast studio feel a little less like my guest bedroom. That's going to be a work in progress. Um, we'll stick with those for now. I need to come up with a better audio system too. It would be cool if when we consult the Oracle speaks instead of me just reading it to you. So we'll work on a few things. I need to get the audio set up better, the studio better, and some more sound effects. So we'll work on that. Anyway, you guys, if you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and email me, microodysseys@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining for episode 2. I hope you had more fun than episode 1, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.